Hi Stampers, it's Kim Vogel with the Basement Bunch Stampers here for another terrific Tuesday video, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of the fun cards that I made using our new Brusho that is in our Occasions catalog. For those of you that don't know what Brusho is comprised of 5 different bottles in a box. Comes like this. And inside of each bottle is different little crystals that activate when you add water. And the different colors that we have are yellow, Prussian blue, brilliant red, Gambogi, I think is how that's pronounced, and moss green. And what I did, and this is something that I learned at Stampin' Up's onstage event that I went to in April, you do not want to use this Brusho where you take off the top of the lid because you will have a mess of crystals everywhere. Instead, they suggested that we use a needle and just poke the top. So what I did is I actually chose to use some push pins, and one for each of the different colors. So I used a red for the red. The only one I did not have a color for was the this Gambogi, which I used a clear for. But otherwise, they all have a color of the different push pin in them, and that is the only hole that I use to sprinkle these crystals out. So this is another way to incorporate watercoloring into your stamping projects, and I had some fun last night playing with my Brusho for the first time, and I created these different cards that I'm going to share with you. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail on actually putting the card together. I want to spend most of my time today with you actually showing you the different ways that I applied this Brusho and how I activated it with the different water techniques. This is probably one of my favorites, as is this one right here. And this one I think had a little bit too much blue on it. So when I make it today to share with you, I'm going to try to do it with a little bit less blue. And you'll notice that I do not have a fancy pretty background today. I have our standard Stampin' Up! Grid paper, and that is because I'm going to be making a mess. But it's going to be a good mess. I'm hoping that you will love Brusho as much as I did. Our Brusho sells in the catalog for $30, but you get all 5 of those colors, and it goes a very long way. The stamp set that I chose to use today with this Brusho is our Beautiful Day stamp set, and I chose to focus on the butterfly image. Now keep in mind there's lots that you could do with the flower as well, but I wanted to kind of keep my cards all uniform using the same stamped image, and I chose to use that pretty butterfly. Again, the stamp set is $21 in the clear mount and $29 in the wood mount. So what I'm going to be focusing on mainly is making the different little butterflies that I did in all of these cards. So what I've done is I have used Stampin' Up's watercolor paper. Now our watercolor paper is in our annual catalog, and that sells for $5, and you get 5 6x9 sheets. So what I've done in advance before I started my video for you all today is I have cut them 4x3, and I already did embossing on them. So I embossed that butterfly. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I embossed the butterfly in white embossing powder onto the white watercolor paper, and that is what you'll see here in the background of all of these cards is that white butterfly. Again, I did that in advance to save me a little bit of time as I walk you through these different techniques. So the first one that I'm gonna, before I guess I get into that, I'll tell you the measurements of the card. It will also be posted on my website at kimsbasementbunch.com. But the card base is 8.5 by 5.5, your standard size. This black and white paper comes from the Petal Passion Designer Series paper in our Occasions catalog. And then I have the watercolor paper cut at 4x3, and the piece behind it also cut at 4x3, and then I just offset those in different ways on each of the various cards. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to start first with this card and how I did this one. So what I did is I used the Brilliant Red Brusho with the yellow Brusho. And what I did is I used one of Stampin' Up's spritzers. These spritzers come 2 to a pack, and I forget exactly how much they are, but I think they're like maybe $5 or $4. That is one of the items that I did not look up, so I apologize in advance for not knowing the price of those. I'll have it included in the video for you. And these you just fill with water. And so what I did to begin is I actually spritzed this with water, and that's what I'm going to do here. I just spritzed with water all over onto, pretty liberally as well, onto that piece of cardstock or watercolor paper. And then I simply added some yellow of the Brusho, and you can see that that is starting to activate. The water activates those crystals. Takes a little bit of time, but it does happen pretty fast. And look how pretty that is. I tried to zoom right in today on my video so that you could get a really good view of how awesome this is. Now the red is going to be my more dominant color, so I'm not going to brush, or I should say dump as much on there as I did the other one. But I am going to go ahead and get some on there. Now that isn't crystallizing quite the way I want it to, or I should say activating. And so what you can always do is add just a smudge more of water, which is what I'm going to do. Now keeping in mind that every time you do this technique, it is never going to look the same. So every time I do it, I may never ever have a card that looks identical to this one again. That's just how it works. But that is the first one that I did. And I'm just going to set this to the side and let that dry before I do anything more with it. What I did do is after I let it dry, I did take a wipe and I kind of wiped down, like a paper towel wipe, and I wiped on top of that butterfly so that the color wouldn't be on the white part that I embossed. So that is what I did with that one. And the next one I'm going to show you is actually pretty much done the exact same way, but on this one, and again I think I did this too dark, on this one I used the Brilliant Blue and the Moss Green, and so I'm just going to put those two together. Again, I have all of these done in advance so that I don't have to sit there and try to emboss all of these. So this one, again, I'm going to spray some water on it, spritz some water on it. Let me make sure I have this in view so that you can all see as I work through these different methods. So this is identical. I'm just spraying some water on there. You can see that I have some of the red underneath of it. I may have to get a new piece of paper here, grid paper. And this time I'm not going to put as much blue on. I'm only going to tap a little bit of blue on here. And I'm going to go for a little bit more green, I think, to kind of give it a different look. And again, if there's a spot where I've missed the water, this doesn't want to come out the greatest. There we go. You can always spritz a little bit more, which is what I think I'm going to do. And I might add a little bit more blue down here. So this is the joy of it. This is the fun of it, where you can just kind of mix and match how much of this Brusho you want to add to your project. So let me go ahead and spritz again. And now I'm going to go ahead and let that dry as well, putting that one to the side. But isn't that pretty? So and the longer you let it sit, now that will take some time to dry, or if you're in a hurry, you can put your heat tool on it and it will dry a little bit faster. I let them all air dry overnight, and then I finished my projects the next day. So this is something that it's going to take a little bit more time to do, but look how fun. You can even kind of put that on an angle and try to get that water all over to kind of go in different spots, but look how pretty that is. I just think that is so pretty. So we're going to put that one to the side. And I'm going to actually bring in another piece of my grid paper because I don't want to, I'm going to actually bring in my dirty one that I used last night. So bear with me here. I'm going to apologize while I make some noise. But I want to be able to not get any more of that water from the previous two onto my next projects. Now this next one that I did, I wanted to use some of the, this I think it's Gambogi is how I call it. I could be wrong. And then I used a little bit of the blue. So I'm going to bring in another one of my butterflies. Now this one I did a little bit different. This one I completely added the powder first. So let me go ahead and get some powder. So you can kind of see how that powder comes out. It literally looks like a very fine dust almost. And you know, and then when you activate it, that is when the magic happens and it turns out really pretty. So I'm also going to add some mossy green to this. So you can see why you would not want to open that cover, because you're going to get a lot, and a little of this goes a long way. And so this time I put the powder directly onto my cardstock, and then I am going to go ahead and I'm going to spritz this. And look at that. Gives you a little bit of all kinds of colors. Isn't that pretty? So that is how I made this one right here. And again, it's going to look different. Each time you do it, it looks completely different. So let me set that one to the side, and I'm going to bring all these in to show you what they're doing as I'm continuing with my video to kind of give you an idea of how they're activating. The last card that I'm going to share with you today is very standard to how you would do traditional watercoloring. So again, I'm going to bring in, and that is this pretty one right here. So I'm going to bring in my last piece of embossed image that I've already done. And what I did on this one is I simply used our clear blocks. Now our clear blocks are a great thing to use because they clean up very, very nice. And what I did, I'm going to start with the blue. So I used our brilliant blue, and a little bit of this goes a long way. So you don't need to put a lot on the clear block. But what I did is I dumped a little bit of this onto a clear block. Okay, and I can kind of see it on there a little bit. And then what I did is I used an aqua painter, and I simply put some water onto this block as well, and just kind of mix that up to make my own little watercolor. And then from here, I simply colored. Let me make sure I can bring this in so you guys can see what I'm doing here. So from here, I just simply watercolored the different pieces of my butterfly that I wanted blue and the different pieces that I wanted to have be green. So again, you can see this is a really light blue. If you wanted it darker, I would bring in more crystals, but I kind of want it to be a lighter blue versus a darker blue. But I'm just going to watercolor this. Now I'm not going to take the time to do it all, because I think you guys kind of get the idea. It's just another way of adding color to your image. And then what I did, after I was all done coloring it blue and coloring it green, I then used Pool Party ink and one of our stamping sponge daubers, I should say. And all I did is I kind of rubbed this into the edge and on top of the butterfly, and that is what I used to make it the pretty Pool Party color all around the outer edge, okay? And I'm not going to take the time to do that because I don't want to go into this until I color it all. But for purposes of this video, I don't want it to be too long. I wanted to be able to tell you how I did that. But that is all I did, and look how pretty that is. Now you could experiment with different colors on this. You could experiment with the red and the yellow. It'd be beautiful. The last thing I'm going to share with you that I did is you could also use these Brusho colors as a watercolor wash. So this is using it as dark as I could get it. And then I went a little bit lighter, and then a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter. And this was actually showed to me by one of my downline, Sarah. She brought this to one of our team meetings and shared it with us. And I love that you can get so many different colors out of one different bottle of that Brusho. And then I did a watercolor wash similarly, where I just kind of kept going with the color all the way down till I was almost out of the ink, the Brusho on my aqua painter. So anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed my video. I do want to bring in, before I say goodbye to you all today, the ones that I did to share with you how they are activating. I almost forgot this step and almost told you all goodbye. But that is how they have activated. And so you can see they're just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Good talking point to anybody who receives these awesome cards. And that Brusho, there's so many different things you can do with it and so many ways you can experiment with it. So thank you all for stopping today. I will also have these cards on my blog at kimsbasementbunch.com, so you'll be able to see them all there. And I kind of just kept them all the same design, and just different ways in which I did that butterfly is the only thing that I changed. So thank you all for stopping today. I hope you've enjoyed these awesome Brusho techniques, and I hope you consider adding this Brusho to your watercoloring selection. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye.